Hi, Lisa Wilson, Human Resources Cultural Consultant and Leadership Vision Coach. I have been dealing with some mediations recently, and what I've seen happen is that we've let situations go on too long. So, a couple of things, and I've said this before in one of my videos, is that anytime that there's extra stress, so COVID has definitely added extra stress. Anytime that there's any extra stress like that, anything that used to be a small rub now becomes this huge thing that we can't seem to handle anymore. So no one can seem to bring back from the disagreements or things like that. But the other piece is when we leave it too long. So when you allow someone in what I'll say is their story. So here's how I explain that. When something happens and we don't have all the information, as human beings, what we do is from our previous experience, we add to that story. We add intentions on the other person that we clearly can't guess what someone else's intentions were, but we add a lot of things to it, and then it becomes this much bigger story. And so now this person who just maybe made a mistake suddenly has these terrible intentions. As leaders, if you see that going on in your team, get it dealt with now. So those little things that seem insignificant, when you let one little thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another add up, then it's really hard to pull people back from their stories. So you give people come through, they have a situation happen and they're upset about it. Usually this is what happens in there. They're upset about it. And now they've created the story around it. So the story that's come around it just gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. So what do you want to do with that? You want to deal with it now. Get the two people in the same room, ideally mediated, and have a conversation about what actually happened. Because then they can hear the other side of the story and start to have more understanding. Now, you can't force this. You want to give them some time when they're comfortable, but you don't want to let this go on for months, because the longer it goes on, the more people stand in their stories and the harder it is to pull them out of that story. Obviously, that's part of what I do, but I just want to remind people to deal with things now, especially through COVID. At any other time, these things happen as well, but through COVID, it's that much worse because we're all stressed. We're all dealing with life in a way that it hasn't been ever. So make sure that when those types of issues come up, deal with them as soon as possible. Don't wait. Don't let them fester. They will only get worse. I hope that you're having a wonderful weekend. We are still very much locked down where I am. While they're opening things up slowly, our numbers seem to be getting worse and worse. I think partially because everyone's fed up and frustrated with all this, but the vaccines are coming and hopefully we'll see an end to this soon. But there's no promise of that. Have a wonderful weekend. And as always, if you want to have a conversation with me or if you're struggling with something right now, I always offer 20-minute free calls where there's no obligation. You just call, we'll have a chat for 20 minutes about what it is that you're dealing with. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy.